Welcome to day 3 of our R&D Tax Summit. This is the final day and our penultimate session. This 3-day digital event has been designed for accountants and advisors navigating the changing R&D tax landscape. For this morning's session, making your mark, strategies and tips to effectively market your services, we are absolutely delighted to welcome our special guest, Joe Edwards from JE Consulting. Joe is going to be talking to you all this morning about how best to market your R&D tax service and demonstrate expertise within the sector. And joining Joe is Mike Dean, our co-founder and managing director here at WhisperClaims. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you'd like to chat to us, please have your chat box open and settings switch to panelists. And if you'd like to chat to us in the audience, you can toggle your settings to panelists and attendees. If you do have any questions, which of course we hope you do for the Q&A later on, please can we urge you to pop those questions in the Q&A box, which should be somewhere around the middle of your Zoom ribbon. We may have some resources to share in the chat box, and it just makes it easier to make sure that we don't miss any questions as we go through. I'm happy to hand over to you, Joe and Mike, for the session.
Brilliant. Thank you, Suze. Just quickly, before we get into the deeper topic for today, just wanted to say a little bit about the overall R&D Tax Summit. As Sue said, this is session 5 out of 6 sessions across 3 days, so we're kind of getting towards the end now. I'm conscious that many of you are on the call, quite possibly been along to some of the earlier sessions. But just quickly, the motivation for doing this was simply that there's been so much change from a legislative structural perspective in the scheme, and of course all of the changes to HMRC behaviour over the last 18 months or so, that most people in the market have been kind of fixated on those things, and there's been very little talk about mitigating strategies and what you can do to kind of work your way through those changes and go beyond it, continue to support your clients, continue to support you grow your business. So hence us putting together this package of content over these 3 days. So today's session with Joe, of course, is really important in that respect, because we want to talk about growth and opportunity, not just reaching out to new clients, but how can you raise awareness with existing clients of this R&D tax service line. So we'll get into that in a little moment. As I say, this is session 5 of 6. So this afternoon's remaining session, all about adapting and thriving in the R&D landscape. It's actually really a product demo with Susan and myself walking you through who we are as WhisperClaims and how our software and support is there to help you to fulfil the service requirement. So please do join us for that. Susan will pop up the link there. If you're not signed up already, it'd be great to see you joining us this afternoon from 2 o'clock. So I shall stop sharing my screen and hand over to Joe at this point. Over to you, Joe.
Okay, just bear with me. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, all good?
Yep, we've got you.
We've got, excellent. Okay, all right. Well, thanks for inviting me to participate in the programme, Mike and Susan. I really appreciate it. I thought we'd start off with just really a look at the business case for delivering R&D services as a practice before we kind of head into the practicalities of how you then promote that. And the reason I wanted to do that is because there's no doubt that the services have been complicated by recent changes in legislation. So I know throughout this summit, Mike, you will have touched on the AIF and the merger of the schemes, and we're all fully aware of the increase in HMRC inquiries. So I think given the more stringent approach by HMRC to review and reject claims, it's perhaps not surprising that we've seen both third-party advisors and firms themselves choosing to kind of pull back a little bit from heavily promoting R&D. My view is very different to that, probably unsurprisingly, but I think it creates a really great opportunity for those willing to provide and promote a service. We've got, from our own clients, firms that are really thriving in that market. We've got firms that have chosen particular routes in how they deliver that service, but the rewards are there. So I think regardless of the changes that are coming through, the facts remain the same, is that R&D claims provide an excellent opportunity for forward-thinking, tax active practices to drive their own growth and help their clients do the same and fund their innovation. Sorry, Mike, go.
Yeah, so to cut across you, Joe. Some of the earlier sessions that we've done in this series have sort of thrown up the fact that although the market itself has undoubtedly shrunk, since 2022 is probably the peak of both volume and value of R&D claims going through. And of course, all of these changes that have hit, it'll take some time for this to kind of roll through, but we'd anticipate it's probably shrunk the market by 20-25% in terms of both volume and value, which of course is part of HMRC's goal here. But underneath that, one of the themes from the last couple of days has been that the scheme itself, despite the fact that it's been squeezed, is still an attractive benefit for clients. There's still something there, still a substantial tax break for appropriate businesses. And of course, those businesses are now, we're seeing this as almost an overwhelming shift, to be honest. Those businesses are turning to their accountant for advice. So they're seeing this change in the market. They're seeing people drop out. They may be experiencing the fact that their service provider has disappeared or no longer wants to support them. And who is it that they're turning to for support? Inevitably, it's their accountant. So there's a bit of a shift from a kind of race for growth and more now a shift towards a race to support clients. It's a different flavor, if you like, in the business. And I guess that'll impact the way people present themselves to the market as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that at all. And I think I did a presentation a few days ago, actually talking about how to differentiate your firm's brand, and the ability to have this kind of, high level support for a lot of firms now is becoming a key differentiator that sets them apart from their competition. That their clients obviously welcome that advice and support that they're given. It makes clients more sticky with the practice overall. So I think whilst there's challenges from new legislation and changes in the market, as you say, Mike, I think those firms that have embraced this and found the right solution to support their clients are now reaping the benefits of that, and they're also being able to widen their portfolio because they're taking clients from firms that can't do this. Yeah. So I think that aspect of diversification in your portfolio is significant. That the tangible value to clients sets you apart from your competition, gives you a bit more of an advantage in backing up your credibility as a proactive tax advisor to your clients. So yeah, I think that there's lots and lots of positives. Yeah. So let's just kind of move on from the business case. I think I'm just going to touch obviously on tools, and from WhisperClaims perspective, obviously, Mike, you're enabling the automation of the R&D claims process, and I think what we're seeing with a lot of the clients that we deal with that are promoting R&D services is while they may have an R&D, I'm going to put in quotes, specialist, yeah, that specialist is leaning on organisations like yourself to handhold them through that process. It allows them to deliver a very proactive service to their client with the backup and support that they would get from organisations like yourself. But from a marketing point of view, we've got some very clear messages in there. It's about adding value. It's about differentiation. It's opening other conversations up with the client. Inevitably will drive new business, and ultimately, which is what we're all in business for, it's a profitable service done well. And I think those are all the things that I would say to any firm saying, well, what's the business case for R&D? If you've got support mechanisms around you, like WhisperClaims, then it's a no-brainer, in my view, to be able to get out there and do this. And those that aren't are potentially putting clients that need that kind of support at risk.
It might be a slightly bizarre thing for me to say this, but just sort of thinking about as you're referring to the process and the kind of backup behind the service delivery. we're seeing again in this new environment that a lot of firms are sort of reporting back to us and saying, actually, this process has helped me say no. So in this new kind of compliance-driven market, if you like, the ability to say no to clients and explain to them properly, because you've gone through a rigorous process as to why it's no, has actually added value in itself. So even though it might not result in a claim, so there's no revenue, and certainly there's no revenue in that for us, there's value add in the client relationship, having gone through a deep dive diagnostic to kind of establish whether or not there is a claim. Even that in itself is adding value to the client relationship.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, this word of trusted advisor is hugely important, because a trusted advisor will always act with integrity, will always give you an honest and responsible answer. And if the answer, sometimes the answer's no. And, big businesses should welcome that approach. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what I wanted to do in this session is hopefully give some practical actions that firms can take away and get started on in terms of their marketing activity. So I thought a good place to start really was just going back to some of the basics. So what we're looking at here is the marketing funnel. Yeah. So I'm going to take the approach of, okay, we've not really been hugely proactive in marketing our R&D services up until this point. Yeah. Generally, it's come from, well, the client might qualify, let's have a conversation with them. It's come from within the client bank. So I just want to have a look at how we widen that a little bit. So a good place to start really is with the model of how your marketing and business development should really work together. So the marketing funnel, if anybody here's done any kind of marketing qualifications, you'll be very familiar with what this is, but it provides the framework upon which your marketing strategy should be designed. So it's sometimes called the marketing pipeline. And what we're looking at here is the funnel in which you use your marketing to attract prospects to talk to you. When you've made them aware of who you are and what you do, it's all about then building engagement with those prospects and then turning them into clients. Now, you can also include clients in this funnel, because there may be clients that have felt a little bit nervous about R&D or don't realise that they qualify. We're making them aware that we're putting them in the top of the funnel here, that this is a service that we provide. We're sending content to them that allows them to consider that, or giving them advice that allows them to consider that, and then obviously turning that into a revenue opportunity. So your strategy needs to help you really design what type of content will be useful to your clients and your target clients in various stages of the buying process. And essentially that's the fundamentals of what marketing's all about. So in the early stages of engagement, that content could be going out to existing clients, but if you're looking at a wider portfolio, you want to be using that content so that you can be found easily. So optimized for search engine optimization. So if somebody's looking for, tax accountant or R&D specialist in a particular town or location, that you can be easily found. So having a good R&D content strategy on your website so that it's helping that SEO process is important. And then as the nurturing cycle progresses, you want greater involvement and interaction with those interested parties to build that trust that you're the right people to talk to. And that means giving good thought leadership content out, good explainers, perhaps some nice video content about how to claim, what qualifies as a claim, and all that kind of mixed media. Yeah. So this is the funnel. Just taking a slight step back from that, we'll look at content marketing in a bit more detail. But before we start putting anything together, you've really got to look at your SWOT analysis in your marketing plan. So what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And this can apply to any part of your marketing activity. But I would suggest you start with a content SWOT analysis, because this is going to help you map out a plan of what you do well at the moment, what you might need to improve on, and where you might need some help in producing the promotional material that you want to put out there. So just by way of example, this is a SWOT analysis looking at content specifically. Yep. So we might identify that there's a type of content that our audience really likes to engage with. There are certain strengths that we have within the practice or individuals that we really want to profile as part of that R&D message. And we have to find insights from what you're doing already to look at how we can enhance that and where R&D fits specifically in your existing content. One of the key ways that you can determine success of what you're doing well at the moment is by measuring your engagement levels. So, how many views and downloads do we get from our website at the moment? How many likes and shares do we get on content that we put out on social media? And if there are weaknesses there, you've got to look at how we can obviously improve that, and maybe what are other firms doing well, or who can we go to that can advise us on what's working for other firms and build that into our SWOT analysis. Are the market trends that we can capitalize on? So obviously within R&D, you've got lots of changing legislation. So there's lots of market trends that you can capitalize on. And those perhaps are opportunities rather than threats. And what do our competition do well? Is there a firm out there that's really held up as the go-to R&D specialist? And what do they do that we can copy to a certain extent, or learn from? So the SWOT analysis and the marketing funnel should really drive everything to help you put that content plan together and help you to identify your audiences a bit better.
Jo, just to sort of reflect some of our own experience in this area, we've I guess now we're really comfortable with the fact that we use ebooks as an example of content, really quite deep content, as a marketing tool. But just kind of reflecting on, before we started doing that was a real kind of mountain. It felt like, oh my God, how do we build that? It was just such a huge thing. It felt like to embark on, but here we are, probably 3 years down the line since we developed our first ebook, and it feels natural to kind of keep building that stuff out, refreshed, etc. I mean, do you find that with people that actually, when they're embarking on this journey, just right at this SWOT analysis stage, is that often seen as a bit of a blocker? But once they're through it, they get in a more comfortable space.
Yeah, I mean, finding time to actually prepare the content that you need to create good engagement is never an easy task. And if client work is washing over you every day, then it falls to the bottom of the priority list all the time. So I think you've got to set some, key deadlines and get help if you need to get help, but find a way of producing what you need to produce. And for a lot of firms, that means getting outside of your comfort zone as well, because there's no doubt that things like this, webinars, there's no doubt that video content, interactive content will create greater engagement than anything else. Yeah. And you want lots of proof statements as well. You've got to go out and interview clients who've had a really good experience with your R&D service. Get them to give you some good testimonials and case studies and success stories around that, and use those as part of your marketing content. And for a lot of firms, that's a challenge to A, find the time to do it, and B, produce it effectively in a way that's going to create that kind of engagement that you want. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, all doable. It's not rocket science, but it's time and effort, really.
And daunting. And I guess that's the point, it's but once you passed it and once you're used to doing it, comes second nature, doesn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you've got to remember that when you're introducing a specialist service like R&D into your practice, or you are relaunching it or re-promoting it, it's crucial to create the strategy, but B, the right type of content that's going to attract the right clients. Which actually brings me on, Mike, to talking about the right clients. So I want to spend a bit of time on this, because you can waste an awful lot of your marketing budget with a a scattergun approach to things, and that's not the right thing to do with R&D. Yeah. Because it's not relevant to everybody. You don't want to create a situation where clients says, well, you're promoting this to me, but now you're telling me, yeah, that I'm not even there. Stop bombarding me with irrelevant content. So for me, a crucial step is launching in sort of taking a more proactive approach with R&D is to identify who's going to benefit the most from it. And generally, as we all know, it's going to be easier to introduce new services to existing clients. Attracting new clients is always going to be more difficult. Yeah. So I would start the process by creating detailed client profiles or buyer personas, so that we are sending the right content to the right people. And what you want to try and achieve is a process that reaches out to clients' perhaps hopes, fears, challenges, and aspirations in relation to this service. So you've got to create empathy in your marketing content. And this client-focused approach helps you tailor your marketing strategy more effectively, but will also enhance the chances of your R&D marketing spend being more successful. And this is all about helping to create messages that really resonate, that apply, that are relevant. It's getting the right clients to you, and then starts to position your firm and your expert as the go-to provider in your local market. So, just on some detail here, when you're launching or relaunching R&D, yeah, you need to take some things into account. So the first thing is set some expectations. So it's important to set realistic expectations for the volume of business in the first year. So it's kind of calculate your current monthly annual customer acquisition rates, what those forecast conversions might be. That will help to guide your strategies and budget, because ultimately you want to make sure that you get an effective return on your investment. Access resources, skills, any external support that you might need to be able to deliver your marketing strategy, determine processes and technology perhaps that's required to maintain efficiency of your marketing process. So are you using, a mail cannon for e-shots? Have you got the right social media platforms that are going to reach out to the right type of audience? Is there enough good content on there for you to be able to press the button? Because nobody wants to get to a platform and find one post about R&D and nothing else. Yeah, so you've got to build that content up. So kind of scale smoothly with a bit more of a clear vision for how you're going to deliver that marketing strategy. Don't overestimate first year's revenue. Use the launch period to set your strategy, build momentum, create trust, create a good reputation around R&D. And this is where your case studies come into play. And when you've got that as your foundations, then you'll be able to continue to grow with a much wider net of promotion. So this is where we start to say, well, what types of businesses are really appropriate to this service? How many businesses, for example, do we have in, whether it's manufacturing or tech or creative, that are really well suited to this in our geography? Where are we going to get the data from to allow us to target those individuals correctly? And this stops you going down the road of a well, let's just send it to everybody and hope there's a fish in the barrel there that is easily shot, and that's not the right approach. You'll end up wasting a lot of money doing that. So understanding the market audience for me is pretty crucial. You can also think about actually setting out on paper buyer personas. So this is a template that we often use when we're looking at audiences for different types of marketing campaigns with our clients. So this involves gathering and analysing qualitative and quantitative information about your potential client base. And it helps you to shape things like demographic data, for example. So the basics. What is the type of job role that our target will have in the business? Is the industry sector one that would lend itself well to potential R&D? Is there a location that's better suited? And when I say location, there are lots of clients who have close by them innovation centres or lots of manufacturing industrial units or big creative hub. And you need to look at, whether your location actually is nurturing the kind of businesses that are relevant for R&D. Understand that person's goals and challenges. So what are the primary objectives and the challenges that they face? Yeah. And understanding those aspects are going to allow you to position your service as a really good solution to that problem. Is the business likely to be risk averse? Does their job title perhaps indicate that there's a risk averse factor there that we need to be aware of? So we're trying all the way along here to connect on more of a personal and emotional level with our potential client. And also understanding how do they consume information? So where do they get their information? Are they an age demographic that prefers it in video or podcast or webinar, or are they on Facebook? Do they prefer LinkedIn? Is it better that we do email marketing? Is it a combination of all of those things? So understanding that buyer persona, again, helps you to develop really good content. And what you'll be able to do then is ensure that you can measure your interaction and feedback more effectively. So think about buyer personas. You might just want to get things started, a breakdown within your own client base and try and adapt some buyer personas from the clients that you already work with. Because if you say, right, we deal with Gabriel, he's in the tech sector, this is the type of tech they're in, this is how he consumes his information, this is how he responds to R&D conversations, and that will then allow you to take that out to a much wider market. And then, of course, you've got your marketing objectives and KPIs that surround all of this. So you've got to make sure that you've got a really good, clear picture of your market, that you ensure that your new service meets the mark. And there are some research methods that you can bring in into the process here. So we've just touched on what I call first-hand research, which is direct interaction with existing and potential clients, who can give you all the valuable insights that you need to be able to reach to a wider prospective audience. I would aim to conduct interviews with about 5 of your existing R&D clients who match your buyer personas. And what you want to uncover in that story is the detailed insight into them as a business, their experience of the R&D process, their experience of the support that they've had through you, what the successful outcomes have been. And that will give you your first-hand research that, as long as they're prepared to go public, with their name, you can start using in your marketing material. You could go down the route of what I call secondary research, which is where you're reviewing existing, where you're looking at a wider market, and perhaps conducting some surveys with businesses to find out what are they doing at the moment, and in terms of R&D, have they considered it for their business? Do they think it's important? But this isn't a selling exercise. We're not going in on the kind of cowboy R&D outfits here. Yeah, you've got a claim, you've got a claim. What we want to find out is what's their view on R&D, what's their view on this aspect of tax? Have they ever considered it, rather than it being a hard sell? And you can do that by desk research, which is picking up the phone and talking to them. You can do it by online surveys. You could outsource it to an agency who can get out there and do that kind of research across your market. But what you'll find with that secondary research is you'll probably end up with quite a good list of potential prospects for you. Yeah, so it's a worthwhile exercise doing it. So I think all of these things start to help you align, what are we going to do? What content do we need to be able to achieve it? start with the client base, set some personas, look at the right type of content that you need to produce, do a bit of market research if funds allow you to do that. And then you've got your strategy set out to say, right, now we can push the button and get started. Don't know, Mike, is your experience in the firms that you work closely with different to that? Do the firms found a magic wand in R&D marketing?
No, I don't think. I mean, we often get asked, you know, what should I do to promote a service? And I guess, you know, some of the things you've touched on it making me reflect on our own experience and how we've gone about what we do, which I know is slightly different, but you know, the whole thing about personas and understanding who it is you're selling to is kind of critically important. And that analysis you mentioned of looking inwards at your own, you know, what does good look like in your existing customer base is like a really important starting point for that. And it made me remember when we did that, which is probably 4 years or so ago now. It's a bit of a sort of pivotal moment in the way that we did our own marketing. To realize that actually, you know, out of, let's say we had 50 customers at that stage, you know, actually there's 10 of them that we want loads more of those. And what are those? And really thinking hard about what constitutes that is the kind of first building block. And I think when people ask us that question, how should we go about marketing the service? They haven't done that. They haven't done that first step and understood who is it that we're trying to deliver this to.
So I think this comes down as well to, you know, packaging up your message effectively as well. So, you know, clarity is really important here, that you ensure that your package is straightforward, it's easy to understand, it's simple language, you know, be direct about what this is, how you can help, what the likely costs might be. Avoid vague descriptions, about what the service entails and the benefits that it offers. You know, be bold, be blunt there. And clearly state what the client can expect to achieve and receive from you without any ambiguity. And also never assume that clients have any knowledge about R&D tax. You've got to explain the concept really clearly as part of your promotional material. Assume nothing.
I'd even go a bit further than that in sort of today's environment, Joe, and that's to be it's kind of back to this compliance angle. You know, it's to focus on compliance and quality. When you do that, and there's a sort of underlying reason for that, which is we're well aware. In fact, most people on this call are probably aware that HMRC are looking at the marketing stance, if you like, of advisors. So when they you know, I'm sure it wouldn't affect the majority of accountancy firms because R&D is going to be a sort of small part of the product portfolio. But certainly when they're looking at the boutique providers, they're paying close attention to, you know, are they overstating the value of the benefit? Are they overstating the simplicity of accessing the scheme? All of that sort of thing. So focusing on compliance and quality is always going to keep you away from that kind of messaging that HMRC are not keen on.
I think packaging the R&D service well, you know, it helps prospective clients and existing clients understand the value of the service that you're providing. Good content will help their decision-making process. You can align that offering with the other services that you're providing to them. So there are huge benefits of this very rounded package, presented well, explained well, that will often lead on to other services. So you get into a conversation about R&D tax and it leads on to conversations about all other aspects of tax. So it's a great door opener as well. We are often asked, where does social media fit in to the promotion of R&D? So it has different facets. So I'm not going to hold up social media as being, you know, the magic wand of marketing by any means at all, but it has its part to play. So for me, it's three important roles. It's a great way to share and promote content. Yeah, it's a great way to directly engage with non-clients, and it extends the boundaries of lead generation beyond your website. So if at the moment your website is pretty much the hub of your online activity, if you're looking at R&D and how we go outside of website and email marketing, then social media tools are important spokes in all of that. The other thing to remember as well, regardless of R&D, is the impact now that content on social media channels has on your general search engine optimization of your website. So if you want to stay on page 1 of Google, you know, for any search phrases that are relevant to your practice and your services, your social presence has a big impact now on Google's ranking. So if your website's linking to social content, then it helps improve that. Yeah. But again, with your buyer personas, you're going to find that there are individuals that are very active on LinkedIn. There are individuals that are very active on Facebook. There are others that will be more active on Instagram and dare I say it, TikTok, which is, you know, again, getting outside of our comfort zones, but is starting to become an important player now on the social scene, more so as a search engine than anything else. Yeah. So you look at the Gen Zers out there, you know, TikTok is their go-to search engine. It's not Google anymore. So you can't ignore it. And you need to use it as a way of grabbing attention. Yeah. The thing about measuring what you're doing on social media, because I often get said, well, you know, we seem to be making a lot of noise, but it's not generating any leads. And I say, well, what you need to be looking at here is how the social media platforms funnel into the ultimate of a potential client actually saying, talk to me. So it has its part to play as part of that overall mix. And what you should be looking at isn't how many leads you've had from social media, but how good your engagement is. So are we getting people's attention? Is the noise that we're creating actually being listened to? And it's easily identifiable on social media because you can look at how many clicks you've had on something, how many likes you've had on something, how many comments you've had, how many shares you've had. And those, for me, are the key metrics of social media. It will never be a lead generator per se. It will be part of the funnel that is encouraging people to trust us, to talk to us. Yeah. So engagement is more important than anything else. Just a quick look at what that could potentially look like. These are the industry standard rates for professional services and the different channels. So your average engagement rate in this sector for Instagram, for example, you know, 1.63%, LinkedIn, 1.03, yeah, and so on. When I look at the engagement rates from some of our clients in the R&D space specifically, yeah, you can see it's very different. And that's because of the quality of the content that those firms are putting out to their clients. Now, I'm not saying, oh, it's all down to JE Consulting, well done us. What I'm saying is that the partners have gotten out of their comfort zone and helped produce some great content that is driving much higher engagement rates. So it is video, for example.
What does engagement rate mean in these figures? Is
so
that likely to be clicks or views or
all? So it could be things like clicks to the website, likes of the post, shares of the post, comments on the post. Yeah. So we would look at all types of engagement and then create an average, which is how the industry standard benchmarks themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't ignore it. It's a hugely valuable tool in building that trust, building great thought leadership content, and credibility. I'll come on to pricing because it's an important part of the overall marketing mix. You know, it's product and price, yeah, promotion and place, part of the 4 Ps. But selecting the right pricing model in your marketing efforts is crucial, not just for profitability, but also client perception and satisfaction. Mike, I think you said traditionally R&D services have been priced on success fees. Is that still the case?
Yes. Well, if you kind of roll back even perhaps 3 years ago, you would certainly see the specialist providers charging contingent fees, even as high as 25 to 30%, based on the tax benefit that's comes from the process. That's probably been squeezed over the last 2 or 3 years down to more like 10 to 15% on average. But more recently, since the changes to the scheme have really started to bite, particularly since the AIF hit last August, we've seen people making a real shift away from contingent fees and charging for an outcome, if you like, to charging for an output. So charging perhaps fixed fees or hourly rates to produce a report. So where contingent fees would perhaps have included inquiry defence before, because of the number of inquiries, you've seen people split that out as a separate charge. So charge you a fee for the report, and then if there's an inquiry, we'll charge you an hourly rate of X to support you through that process. So starting to de-risk their offering by changing the way that they pitch the price, which has been I'd say a real pointed difference in the last 9 to 12 months.
Yeah. So I think understanding the psychology behind pricing helps you align your marketing strategy with kind of your business goals, but also, client expectations. So I think we're seeing, Mike, things like value pricing, which is based on the perceived value of the service to the client rather than the cost to deliver the service. So there are benefits there. You can get some premium pricing in. The drawbacks are high expectations.
Yeah, just back to what I said there about this shift to fixed fees and hourly rates. Of course, how to set those fixed fees and hourly rates is a different question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we see people talk about doing it on a value basis. We also see people just doing it on a sort of time and materials and a margin basis. So it is a bit of horses for courses, but I would probably strongly recommend people to be thinking about value-based pricing if they're thinking about those fixed fees.
Yeah, I mean, there are huge benefits to value versus bundle pricing for sure. Bundle will lower the barriers to entry for entry clients, if you like, makes it easier for them to commit. We're all familiar with that, but there is a risk there of not meeting specific needs because there's extra time, and that becomes a problem. And fixed fees ultimately. So I think most of our clients will price R&D on value pricing. Yeah. I'm not saying in every case that's right. Different approaches for different businesses, but that would be our general rule of thumb, is to go in on that basis. Yeah. Okay. When it comes to converting to, visitors, etc., all of this work that you've done in your marketing, how we've now created interest. Somebody wants to talk to us. How do we get them over the line? I think the thing to remember with prospective clients, obviously, is they're very different to existing clients, and they're very different to referrals as well. So we often have to overcome a bit of a battle with marketing generated leads, in that it's not the sure thing that a client or a referral generally is. You've got to work a bit harder. So bear in mind that it's not going to be potentially a yes on day one. You've got to nurture that lead before you can actually convert it into a client. That involves being a number of things in that nurturing process, from educator, informer, demonstrator, advisor, to get them over the line. So you've got to try and fulfill all of those roles in your lead to conversion process. The important thing is that the person who's doing the converting is, and I say this with the greatest respect, is capable of doing that. Yeah. So we often find that tax people are busy for a good reason. And if it's not a yes on day one, they're falling down the funnel and back out the bottom and going back in the top of the funnel very, very quickly. So maybe find some ways of nurturing that lead along with the help of marketing, which can keep the contact going. Maybe a good CRM system will help that process. But, delivering, for example, you talked about ebooks, Mike, and guides and things like that. getting that kind of content continually in front of them, even though they've said they're interested, is still important to nurture that lead along and giving them valuable knowledge-based content.
Do you think there's a difference, Joe, here between converting existing clients to this new service line versus bringing in new business, and how you handle those two different groups?
Well, yeah, I mean, clients and new business will be completely different. Clients have already got that bank of trust and goodwill with you. A potential client hasn't, and you've got to build that up a little bit before you can go in heavy, really.
Yeah.
But it's managing that journey through the marketing funnel, you know, a strategic blend of outreach, engagement, help, advice, as I say, educator, informer, advisor. And it's just ensuring that that process is managed well, so that the budget that you're spending on your R&D marketing is actually converting into leads.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to the funnel for a second, because there are stages in here that will deliver those prospects into the top of the funnel for you. And you need to establish a presence across multiple channels to effectively reach and engage with the audience. So the channels that we would always focus on practically are the website, first of all. So firms' websites, the first point of contact for most potential clients. They need to get to the R&D information quickly and easily, so make sure it's easily navigated. You need to optimize your website content so that you're found on Google if people are searching for R&D advice, and ensure that when they get there, the information is engaging, it's reflective of your firm's expertise. There are good call to actions on those pages, so it's prompting visitors to, you know, schedule a meeting with you, download some resources where they have to leave their email address to get it, contact you. So that landing experience, if you're putting that kind of effort into your promotion, needs to be a good one. I'd also suggest that you look at maybe getting featured in industry publications. So we've talked about client personas. Industry sectors have their own go-to journals, magazines, online resources. It would be helpful to try and get your expert featured in those places, with thought leadership commentary, views and opinions. So good kind of PR program around that. I would also look at social media advertising as well. So online advertising on the social media platforms works, because you can identify those client personas really easily and look at which sandpit they're actually playing in. And it's not a big spend in terms of compared to what was historically print advertising. Online advertising can be really well targeted, hit the right people. Again, good landing experience on your website will drive them to want to talk to you. And social media content, yeah. Awareness, trust, credibility, case studies, success stories. This is all the kind of content that you want to be putting out on your social media channels that help build that those levels of trust up for you. And it's not a one-off hit, sadly. It's a bit like the Forth Road Bridge. You've got to get to one end of it and go back to the beginning, yeah, and keep it going. So a campaign can't last 3 months, yeah. Your campaign has got to be sustained and built up over a long period of time, yeah.
I think you might have answered this, Joe, to a certain extent, but back to what I said earlier on about in our early days of looking at how we promoted ourselves and feeling sort of daunted by all of these potential things that we could do, but being budget limited at the same time.
Yeah.
Where would you say, I mean, can you even say where the best places to go to get the kind of best bang for your buck? Where do you start to get the biggest hit? Is that easy to say?
Do you know, this is a really common question. What's the one thing that really works? And I wish I had it, because, you know, it would be wonderful to say, do this and it will get you all the leads that you want. It will help you convert all the clients that you want to. But you've got to understand that your clients will gather their information from different sources, and it could be Facebook, it could be email marketing, it could be Google searches, it could be TikTok, it could be, oh, I would only, and it needs a professional referrer to make an introduction to you and understand what you do around R&D. That opens that conversation. So the successful marketing plan sits on a foundation of good research, understanding the market, producing good content, and leveraging that. And you have to do it across multiple channels to achieve the right results. I would always start with the client base first, because they're going to be your easy wins, yeah? And segment your client base effectively, develop content around them before I would take it out to a wider market and start spending marketing budget on that. If I had if I had a limited budget and somebody said, where should I spend that, I would probably go down the road for prospects of Google paid advertising or Facebook paid advertising if I was on a very tight shoestring to get some wins through the door quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But only if the website was good enough for them to land on.
Yeah, there's a sort of foundation stone there, isn't there?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think that just closing thoughts, really, Mike. It's no single individual represents the entirety of a market. So test your ideas. Challenge the content that you're putting together. Be clear, simple in the messages that you deliver, because the buyer's journey can be quite a complex one. And just keep changing it all the time. Yeah, new messages, new advice, new ideas, new success stories, new testimonials. Yeah, just and new video. Yeah, just keep bringing all of that through across your different channels, and you'll get a call to action.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that, Jo. And as I mentioned earlier, marketing is often a question that comes up when we're dealing with clients, because of course they're coming to us wanting to either roll out a new service or at least bolster a service that they've already got and try and expand it. And so they're often challenged by this. So I hope that the audience has enjoyed that. Have we had any questions coming through, Suze?
I've got a couple here. The first one I think actually might be one bit more maybe for you, Mike, but hopefully you can both have a stab at it. So Richard, thank you for your question. In view of the current HMRC landscape with regard to R&D, is it still a viable opportunity to progress, particularly under the current RDEC scheme where monetary returns are much less? He's just playing devil's advocate. He states at the bottom there.
Well, especially if we know that Richard is active as well, so we know that they're delivering a service, Richard, which is great. Is it worth it from a financial perspective, I guess, is the question there. I'd say the answer is certainly yes. I think we're seeing two things going on. If you look at the boutique market, so R&D specialists who might not have any other services in their portfolio, of course, for them, they're making decisions about maybe market sectors that they go for, and particularly sizes of claims that they're chasing. So they're chasing bigger claims to make sure that they get that financial return, which means that that market's getting even more competitive, perhaps, than it ever has been, because of the squeeze I said earlier on. There's got inevitably fewer claims going through. So that's leaving those smaller claims behind, and inevitably smaller businesses behind as well, which I think represents an opportunity, especially represents an opportunity for accountants, where you've got or anyone who's got a portfolio of services to sell, and R&D isn't necessarily having to kind of stand on its own 2 feet and drive the business. So still a margin in it, but maybe isn't as high as it was before. And at that end of the market, we're seeing more and more accountants servicing that part of the market. And as I said earlier on, being asked by their clients for support. A point was made in one of the sessions yesterday about, if you're an accountant and you're delivering tax services generically, your clients expect you to know all about R&D and expect you to be able to service them. And if they're getting let down by the rest of the market, inevitably they're coming and knocking on the door of their accountant. So there's an increasing drive there for how do we service these people? How do we do it efficiently and effectively? And of course, that's why they're coming to talk to us about our software and support. And can we do it as a part of our overall portfolio of services? So it's a bit different in those two ends of the market, I think. But in both cases, there is definitely a business case to continue to deliver a service.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, I've got another one. This is definitely one for Joe. What percentage of turnover should I be allocating to my marketing budget?
So I think, again, we've done a bit of benchmarking across our client base on marketing spend, as you would imagine we have. So my recommended is always 3% of turnover should be allocated to your marketing spend. In reality, I think for most firms, it sits more like 1.5 to 2%. From a marketer, with my marketeer's hat on, it should be 3%. I think there's a time element in that as well, Suze, which is your marketing budget is your marketing budget, but don't underestimate the time if you're doing it yourself in-house that you've got to put into developing the content, and there's a cost there as well.
Absolutely. I think certainly for some of the sole practitioners that we have working with us, that is their biggest challenge, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
They literally have all their hands full with all the work that they're trying to deliver, and this is just something they just don't have time to do, or they do.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a trite thing to say, but I know, having been there ourselves, that this is definitely true. That that feeling of being daunted by taking the first steps down the journey, particularly I'm talking here about content development, it is very real, and people are put off by that and put off by the amount of time that it might take. But there's only one way of doing it, and that's to kind of grit your teeth and crack on. And once you're into it, and you've kind of built that time into your working week, it sort of becomes second nature. It certainly has for us over the years. But it is a hurdle to get over at the start of that process.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for questions. We do have a couple of minutes left, so if anybody does have any more that they'd like to ask Joe or Mike, I'll leave you to furiously type just for a couple of seconds. But just while we wait, just to see if there are any questions, just to say thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much, Joe, for giving up your very valuable time to be here to deliver.
It's an absolute pleasure.
And Mike too. Anything from either of you for final thoughts?
I'd just say thanks everybody again for coming along and joining in with the summit. Just a quick reminder that we've got this afternoon's session, which is essentially the product demo with Suze and myself. We've already shared the link to that in the chat box, so do join us if you can. We look forward to seeing you there.
And thanks very much for inviting me. Pleasure.
You're very welcome. Well, keep there, and thank you again, Joe. Thanks, Mike, and hopefully see you all at 2. But if not, take care, and we'll be in touch soon.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye. Thanks, everyone.